Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. Usually at this time, I kind of wait for Jack or Anish to say their names, but it's not like that this time because it's just me. It's me, myself, and I. Happy to see you all. We're going to put this on IGTV and also on YouTube. So wherever you're watching, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube. But anyways, we are going to be going, or I'm going to be going over my power rankings, only my top 15 for the video. The rest of the power rankings will go out in a post on Instagram. So stay tuned for that. But without further ado, I want to get right into it. So at number 15, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Definitely a team that's one of the hardest to figure out. I'd say either them or the Bears. But their defense, top notch. I mean, this is a top two defense, probably only behind the Niners, in my opinion. They could be one, honestly, and I wouldn't be mad. They got playmakers at all three levels. You got Devin Bush, you got Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Bud Dupree, Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick. Like, they're all studs. And I think this is definitely going to be a good offense. But then when you look at, a good defense, but then when you look at the offense, Big Ben coming back, honestly, I think Steelers fans would want probably 75 to 80% of Big Ben back, and this team can make the playoffs. That's just my opinion. And I think Juju struggled without Big Ben. I think that whole offense really kind of tanked without Big Ben. But going 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as your quarterback, like, I got to give it up to Mike Tomlin. That's impressive. So right now, I could see this team making the playoffs. It really just depends on Big Ben. But they're sitting at number 15 for right now. I'd say that's pretty fair. At number 14, the Arizona Cardinals, a team that made a lot of improvement this offseason. Of course, we know about the trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not going to go into depth about it, but obviously it's a big move. The defense, you got Budda Baker re-signed 4 years, $59 million, I believe. I think that's an overpay, but, I mean, they got their guy. Budda Baker, definitely an underrated safety. He just plays with no fear. It didn't even matter his size. He can go out and tackle anyone. So I really commend that for Budda Baker. But enough about him. You look at Chandler Jones. You look at Isaiah Simmons. You got playmakers on all three levels. Pat Pete, I think he's still elite. So that defense is still looking good. The offense made major improvements. The problem is you're in a very, very competitive division. So we'll see how that shakes up for Arizona. Right now, I see them 8-8 or 9-7, which would be very big steps forward, but 14, I think that's fair for them. Moving on to number 13, the Philadelphia Eagles. So Carson Wentz comes back, and he gets better receivers. You got Jalen Reagor. I think you go get John Hightower in the 5th. Kez Watkins, 2. Might be thinking of a different team, but I think it was the Eagles. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but he's going to have more weapons. I think Ertz and Goddard, best tight end duo in the NFL. Sanders is my breakout pick for this year at running back. So overall, this offense is actually looking way better than I thought. On defense, Fletcher Cox, of course. You add Darius Slay. That defense is looking solid. It's a little bit worse off than before, but, I mean, overall, it's still good. Only problem is whenever a cornerback goes to Philly, they usually regress, except for probably like Asante Samuel. So we'll see how that works out. But I got the Eagles at 13. Let's go on to number 12. Number 12 and 11 are actually pretty interesting because I have two teams from the same division. So number 12, the New England Patriots. And with the Patriots, Cam Newton, of course, adds a little bit of juice to that offense, a little bit of excitement. But the problem is that receiving core, it's still very questionable. Julian Edelman's cool. Mohamed Sanu was pretty good down the stretch. But still, and Cam Newton, the jury's still out, in my opinion. I mean, he's so many years removed from that MVP campaign that I just don't feel comfortable bringing it up anymore as defense because it just wasn't recent enough. But anyways, Cam Newton, I think that's a great guy to bring in after losing Tom Brady. So, and I never doubt Bill Belichick anyways. So I'm comfortable putting them at 12. The defensive side, they're still elite. Obviously, they lose Dante Hightower to the opt-outs, but I don't think it should have a very it shouldn't really tank their defense, if that makes sense. I think some other guy will step in, maybe Jawan Bentley. That secondary still very much elite. Stephon Gilmore, Devin McCourty. I don't see why you would need to add Earl Thomas to that mix, but it's risky, but I won't go into it. But overall, I think the Pats still in good shape. I see them getting second in the division. First belongs to the Buffalo Bills, who I have at number 11. And the reason I have them on the outside looking in at the top 10, Josh Allen. We don't have look, Josh Allen is very talented. Not a top 10 quarterback. I'd say probably top 15 though. But still, we don't have a proper read on him. That's why the organization brings in Stephon Diggs, which was a great move on the behalf of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, to get a proven talent. Because with that pick that the Bills had, they probably would have taken a wide receiver anyways. But the thing is, it's an unproven talent versus a proven talent. So it definitely works out in Buffalo's favor. So I'm excited to see how Stephon Diggs fits in this offense. I'd definitely love to see Josh Allen grow. I think he's definitely going to recognize his flaws from the playoff game versus the Texans and capitalize on them a little bit. So, and also the second year of Devin Singletary should be interesting. On the defensive side, Tre'Davious White, nothing really changed too much, not that I can really think of. So that defense is still going to be good. But overall, the Bills at 11, only thing that keeps them from top 10, Josh Allen being inconsistent. We'll see if he can fix that this year. So let's get into my top 10. At number 10, the Minnesota Vikings. Now with the Vikings, people usually kind of look at them and they already think, oh, they're going to take a step back this season, which I do think they will, but not to the extent that people think. Now with the Vikings, you lose Stephon Diggs, you lose Everson Griffin, you lose basically all your corners. Like Mike Hughes was the only recognizable guy on the depth chart leading into the draft. But then you get Jeff Gladney, then you get Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen is going to be a great wide receiver duo. I think Kirk Cousins can still thrive. I don't think this team takes a big step back. I still think they get second in that division. I don't see the Bears overtaking them. I'd say maybe 9-7, 10-6, something like that. I think that's enough to get them into the playoffs with the new rules. But it should be interesting to see for Minnesota because Mike Zimmer is still a great coach too. So we'll see how it works out for Minnesota in the end. At number 9, the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans this offseason re-signed Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was previously tagged, but then he got a contract. Now with Ryan Tannehill, was it a one-year success? Will he repeat it? You could argue either way. I'd bank on saying he will. I think especially if he builds that rapport with AJ Brown, Derrick Henry is going to be Derrick Henry. I mean, that guy's a truck. On the defensive side, you lose Logan Ryan, you lose Jarrell Casey, but I still think this defense is good. I still think it's a competitive defense. And Christian Fulton, I'm pretty sure, was drafted by the Titans, so that's a great value pick there. So overall, I think the Titans are in good shape. Will they make another run to the AFC title game? I wouldn't bet on it, but I think this team is set up for the future with Tannehill and Henry. So that's my pick at number 9. At number 8, the Green Bay Packers. Now with the Packers, they had one of the worst drafts I've seen in some time. And I'm not necessarily mad about the Jordan Love pick because I think it's an all right pick. But what I'm really worried about is not getting a receiver in a draft class that was historically loaded at wide receiver. Like, how do you not grab a receiver at any point during the draft? That's just mind-boggling to me. So now you're counting on Alan Lazard to step up and be that number 2 guy, which is still very much questionable. So behind Devontae Adams, we'll see what things shake up at receiver. But, I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's Devontae Adams. You still got A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. So that offense is still looking good. I think Matt LaFleur is going to go more conservative this year. On defense, you bring in Christian Kirksey to replace Blake Martinez. I was about to say Joe Schobert for some reason. But you bring him in to replace Blake Martinez. And we know that Kirksey did really well under Mike Pettin when he was with the Cleveland Browns. So I do like that pickup. But overall, the Packers, I still think they win the division. I think I'm comfortable saying that. I don't want to take any risks with the NFC North. But yeah, I think that's just my take on the Packers. We'll see how well they do. I just think their draft was pretty questionable in some ways. So that's why they stick at number 8. But at number 7, The Tampa Bay, or should I say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though that's one of the worst nicknames I've ever heard. Tampa Bay. It doesn't roll off the tongue right. But anyways, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady, and Tom Brady. That was the centerpiece of this whole offseason. But looking at the other areas, wide receiver, obviously a strength. You got Chris Godwin, who's a bona fide star. Mike Evans, one of the best 50-50 ball wideouts in the game. Now, the running game, it's questionable, but I think Ronald Jones will do better this year. I think Dario Gumbawale and Keyshawn Vaughn will get a role too. So it should be interesting to see how that trio shakes up. Looking at tight ends, that is a crowded tight end room with Gronk, OJ Howard, and Cameron Braid. But I think Bruce Arians can make it work. And Tom Brady likes to spread the ball around too. So maybe it's not for the worst of him. Looking at the defense, Shaquille Barrett, was it a fluke? Can he do it again? That's a big question on that D-line. That front seven is nasty because, of course, he got Vita Vea too. Devin White, one of the better young linebackers in this game. One of my favorite young linebackers in this game, I should say. Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy Bunting. You recently drafted Antoine Winfield, I'm pretty sure. So the Bucs defense is looking good. That offense, of course, let's see if it lives up to the hype. Let's see if this team lives up to the hype, because I don't want this to be Browns 2.0 and be disappointed again, because this is the Buccaneers' time to shine. Will they beat out the Saints for the division? I'm not predicting them to, but I think they'll have a very respectable record, somewhere between 9-7 and 11-5. So let's move on to number 6. Who do we have? The Seattle Seahawks. Wow, one of the teams I hate the most. So with the Seattle Seahawks, I mean, I got to give props when props are due. Like, they are consistently good. They have smacked the Niners all decade. And going into this year, I don't see them beating the Niners for the division, but boy, it's going to be one heck of a race. Because when you look at the Seahawks with the Jamal Adams trade, their defense, it's a bit questionable, especially with the lack of a pass rush, but maybe they can make it work. On offense, of course, you got Russell Wilson, a top 2 quarterback, and he's not two. I'm playing. He's two. At running back, it's kind of a revolving door at this point. You got Chris Carson, you got Rashad Penny, but injuries are a thing in this game, so that's unfortunate to see. But the talent is all there. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, 2 studs at receiver. I think Metcalf will take a step forward this year. Tyler Lockett is just consistently underrated, and I think he's a great receiver too. So that kind of rounds out the offense. Really, the only questionable part of that whole Seahawks team is the pass rush for me, because everywhere else, I don't really see any major holes. Maybe tight end with Hollister and Will Dissly and Greg Olsen, but even then, that's not really that much of a hole. So, offensive line. How could I forget? Offensive line. When you have no O-line and no D-line, that's troubling, but I think the Seahawks can make it work. I expect them to go 11-5, maybe 12-4. I could see it, but that's my prediction for now. Moving on to number 5 on my list. This might surprise some of you guys. The Dallas Cowboys I put at number 5. But I am a huge believer in the Dallas Cowboys. They have one of the most complete rosters in the league, in my opinion. And you bring in a new coach. I mean, if they don't make it work this year, I will never bet on the Cowboys ever again. Like, this is the year when I'm going all in on the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott. There's not much to explain about the offense. An amazing receiving core. Blake Jarwin, we'll see how that works. I think he can be good in this offense. Yet and still, he's proved it. On defense, that D-line, DeMarcus Lawrence, Everson Griffin. Now, Gerald McCoy does go down with a quadriceps injury, but I don't think it should hurt that much. Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, one of the better linebacker duos in the NFL. You got Chidobe Awuzie at corner. They might move him to safety. I wouldn't necessarily agree with doing that, but it's up to the Cowboys. Speaking of safety, HaHa Clinton Dix might be one of the best safeties they've had in quite a while. So I don't really see a need to bring in Earl Thomas. If I was the Cowboys, I think I'd just stick with what you got. But I know Cowboys fans have been wanting an elite safety for the longest time. So I think this defense is elite. I think the offense is elite. This team in general is an elite team. Let's see how Mike McCarthy coaches this team, though. Definitely a step up from Jason Garrett. So I'm excited to see the Cowboys in 2020. Moving on to number 4, the New Orleans Saints. And the biggest question with the Saints, and it may not be the biggest, but it's up there. will Drew Brees regress this year? Because he has the supporting cast. You'd think that he wouldn't. But, I mean, age is always a factor. I mean, I never count out age. So if he does regress this year, I think this is the last we see of Drew Brees. I think he retires after this year. Even if he does really good, it's still a question that needs to be put up there. Will Drew Brees retire after this season? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. You got Mike T. You got Emmanuel Sanders, a true wide receiver too now. Alvin Kamara. You got a great O-line, one of the best O-lines. Ryan Ramczyk, one of my favorite tackles in the league. Teron Armstead on the other side. You draft Cesar Ruiz to replace Larry Warford. So overall, Saints offense is looking good. Saints defense isn't really bad either. So I think this team will compete with the Niners for the NFC crown. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Saints go 13-3 or 14-2, to be honest. I'm that confident in this team. And I know it may sound bold, but I could see it. Will they overcome those playoff woes? Geez, I hope for Brees' sake, but I'm excited to see the Saints in 2020. Let's move on to number 3, though. Let's get into my favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers. And we all know about that turnaround from 4-12 to 13-3, but can they maintain that success? And I will say yes, because I have them projected at 12-4. My little thing is, though, and I said this in our NFC West record predictions episode, will the offense have the same consistency it did in 2019? And I'd answer maybe not, but I wouldn't be surprised. Because wide receivers is a big question mark with all the injuries. Of course, Deebo Samuel, we don't know his availability for week 1. Jalen Hurd goes down. He's on IR. Kendrick Bourne is basically our starter, if you really think about it that way. Kendrick Bourne, Trent Taylor. They brought in Kevin White recently. We'll see how that works. But, Dante Pettis too. How could I forget? So the wide receiver room is a little questionable, but George Kittle, man. I don't even need to explain George Kittle. He's just an animal. He's going to be the top target. He's going to get a lot more targets this year, especially with the injuries happening to our wide receivers. And that O-line, you bring in Trent Williams. I think it was a good move. Some people may disagree because they're a little bit, how do I say this? They don't really put all their faith in Trent Williams to come back to form. And I could understand why, but I think he's just an animal. I think he's going to be a great fit in this scheme. That defense, it's still the best in the league, in my opinion. It's still the best in the league. That D-line is still vicious. One of the best young linebacker cores in the NFL. It's Richard Sherman, a top 3 corner still, top 4. And the safety duo of Tartan Ward really isn't that bad. So, again, no need to bring in Earl Thomas. Don't mess this up, John Lynch. But overall, the San Francisco 49ers, I would not be surprised if they went back to the Super Bowl. I have them at 3 in my power rankings because I really feel that this team didn't regress all that much. Maybe a little bit, but not a whole lot. I really think it's going to come down to the Niners and Saints for the NFC. And I think the Niners got what it takes. So let's move on to number 2. We've gone through so many NFC teams. I think the last AFC team was the Titans at 9. So let's finally get back into the AFC with the Baltimore Ravens at number 2. Now with the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, of course, the MVP. Let's see how he progresses as a passer first. Marquise Brown, I think he is a breakout candidate for me, because injuries really held him back this year. That run game will still be good. Mark Andrews is going to be Mark Andrews. That defense improved heavily, though. I really like the pick of Patrick Queen, one of my favorite picks in the draft. It's crazy how the best players just fall to the Ravens just like that. And the Ravens have the easiest schedule in the league. So can they do 14-2 again? I think they could, but I'm not going to predict that. I'd say they go 13-3 or 12-4. I'm really playing it on the safe side, guys. I'm sorry. But with the Ravens, they are going to be the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC, obviously. Will Lamar Jackson progress as a passer? I think so. He has improved every single year. So can he overcome those playoff woes? I think he will, but you can never tell. You can never tell in this league. So let's move on to number 1. The reigning Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, it's just a no-brainer at that spot. If you want to put the Ravens over the Chiefs, be my guest. But I don't see how you could, especially because they're the Super Bowl champion, bringing their whole core intact. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to have the same weapons as a year ago with the addition of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, I don't see this offense slowing down at any point this season. The defense, you bring back Chris Jones. You still have Tyrann Mathieu. Mathieu and Thornhill is a great safety duo. This team can go back to the Super Bowl. I think that AFC Championship is going to be Ravens-Chiefs. Let's see. I can't wait for week 3, to be honest. That's going to tell a lot about this season and what we're going to see in that AFC race. So Chiefs at 1, really a no-brainer for me. The easiest pick I had to make on this power ranking. And that's going to close it out. So if you're watching this on Instagram, go ahead and follow us if you really like this episode. And subscribe to our YouTube too. We are sitting at 184 subscribers last time I checked. And we really want to hit our goal of 200. So we appreciate all the support that you guys can give to us. So yeah, that's all I have for right now. So until next time, peace.